Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. Um, Morning today. I usually do this in the afternoon. But for those who are actually watching us from different time zones, good afternoon or perhaps good evening in others, or if you're watching this on a replay. My name is Marilyn. For those who doesn't know me yet, I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co-creating customized program with our world-class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. Expert says that the pandemic will last for the next 3 to 5 years. And this is why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt in the new normal or next normal, those who actually find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and for those business owners who are afraid to keep their that they can't keep their team anymore or their business in general. So to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, we would like to have you in several interventions that we organize on a regular basis. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. Clement Ng is a highly experienced corporate trainer, executive coach, profiler, and management consultant specializing in business competencies to transform organizations and deliver superior results. His wealth of experience was garnered from over 20 years of corporate leadership position within major listed companies and multinationals. In the past 17 years, he has been actively involved in learning and development and facilitated in excess of over 200 workshops. He left his corporate leadership position to fulfill his passion in training, and he possessed a wide base of industry knowledge and experience in various high performing sectors like banking and finance, pharmaceutical, retail, FMCG, MICE, luxury services, consumers, manufacturing, projects, architecture, and government. He has mentored and trained thousands of executives and professionals in leading organizations on commercial application within both B2B and B2C environments in the region. His unique methodology to understand, contextualize, and customize to suit the requirements of the business environment quickly and accurately has earned him his clients' trust and endorsement. He has a strong passion and desire to share his broad commercial knowledge and practical know-how to impact learners and transform their performances rather, to achieve greater heights. So without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Clement. Hi, Clement. How are
Hi,
you?
Marilyn. How are you? Good. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you for, introducing me and also welcoming me to the show. All right.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because we have a lot of things in common, especially in terms of our passion. So just so excited about it. And before we start, I would like to say hi to Davin Raj. He's actually saying hello, good morning. And yeah, so welcome to this conversation. Um, to start with, I'd like to ask you, because the first three questions is more towards us understanding from which perspective are you actually coming from, and then the 4 to 6 question is meant to be, like, I would say, the most juicy part of this conversation, and the 7 to 8 question will be your Miss Universe question. So it's your chance to be a Miss Universe. And so I'd like to learn from you, like, your experience in terms of leadership, your influencers, and probably if you do have like favorite leadership styles that you can share with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marilyn. Well, I think for leadership for me, It's really about how I translate vision into action. Yeah. I
Mhm.
think if you, as a leader, if you are just looking at from a vision perspective without any form of concrete actions, is not going to achieve any form of tangible results. So that's
Mhm.
very important for me. But my leadership was very much influenced since when I first started in the corporate world. So about
Mhm.
25 years ago, I was fortunate enough to work for a lot of large organizations. At the same
Mhm.
time, work for really great bosses that had a lot of
Mhm.
influence in terms of how I see leadership, because they had great techniques, tactics, and just the style of how they run their organization and the people helped me sort of role model the certain
Mhm.
qualities that they possess. And that has helped me look at leadership in a different perspective. Over time, obviously, you sort of develop your own style of leadership. I wouldn't say
Yes.
that it's a definitely one style that we apply, but I think it's a more of a combination of style.
Mhm. Mhm.
Say very much depending on the situation that happens, and then sometimes you need a commanding style, sometimes you need a little bit more of a coaching format. But I think it's much more of a combination that sort of work best overall.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I potentially see leadership.
Wow, thank you for sharing with us. And it's kind of obvious. I mean, over and over again from my interviews, they've been sharing like how they've learned their own style based on the role models or the both the negative and positive experiences that they have with the leaders that they work with. And I'm glad you've actually reiterated again here in this conversation that in terms of leadership style, the best is that you have to combine this, right? These different leadership styles, because obviously, one size doesn't fit. How do you
One
say
size
that?
doesn't fit all,
One
basically.
size, exactly. So thank you. So because people have different personality, and so you also have to pace it in such a way that it would work best for them to bring in their potential, right? Bring out their highest potential, right? And that leads me to the next questions, which you might have actually answer already. Like, what is leadership for you?
Well, I think based on what you're asking, basically leadership, as I mentioned, is a little bit more about translating the result. But having said that,
Mhm.
it's also about helping the team within the people that you work with, yeah,
Mhm.
aspire to greater potential. Because the more they are building their competencies to reach a greater height, the better you are overall as a team, and also shows your level of leadership or competencies within leadership. Yeah. So I
Mhm.
think it's important. Without the people, generally, there is not much of a leader in place.
True.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes. And like again, they would always say that, how can you be called a leader when nobody's following you, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
again, I still believe though as well that, there's always self-leadership because everyone is a leader in our own rights, right? As
Yeah.
a parent in our community, and in our business, right? So we're all leaders in fact. But yeah, again, it's all about helping others or your team members, for example, like what you said, to bring them to greater heights, right? And it's always translating this vision that you have. And it's important, the important thing that I got from how you define leadership is the action part, right? Because nothing happens without action.
Absolutely.
Obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we know, during my introduction, I made mention like all the challenges that a lot of leaders are facing as well, in this next normal. So I'm curious to know, like, how would you define or describe the next normal?
I think generally the next normal is almost now. It's like it's happening now, in a way, because we all have to adapt fairly quickly. COVID has made working arrangements a lot more challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and I think as a leader, we probably need to thrive in order to adapt fairly quickly. At the same time, try to utilize whatever resources or tools we have that
Mm-hmm.
will help us in the sort of new normal. Technically, a lot of it is done virtually,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of skill sets in how to maneuver or navigate the pathway in the virtual environment is important, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly try to leverage on technology as much as possible.
Yes, and I would assume that you have like a lot of programs that are involving as well on, how you can actually adapt quickly to thrive, and as well as on how you can actually handle the virtual or remote type of teams, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think in
Yeah.
terms of tools, certainly a lot we can utilize. So, for example, what we are doing now, it's a lot of on virtual. So
Mm-hmm.
these instead of the physical meeting, we are doing a lot on virtual. But what virtual means, not the fact that we are working on it, but that it involves, for example, a lot more communication, a lot
Mm-hmm.
more trust, a lot more of how we connect with each other, without physically present in front of people. Yeah. So that's
Right.
something to think about. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and again, that's good to know, because a lot of leaders have lost that connection, or like they got confused on how do we stay connected, how do we still communicate effectively with our with our team or with our clients, now that everyone is working remotely or a virtual type of setting. But it's possible, right? I mean, what we're doing right now is more of leveraging on technology and a virtual setting as well, right? But then we can still like share our message, we can still inspire more people to adapt in this next normal, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads me now to the next question. Like, we've mentioned a lot of challenges that leaders are going through. But I mean, even before the COVID-19, there are already like, challenges and issues that that leaders would have. And so like for you, what would be the top three problems that, I mean, you're a corporate leader yourself for the last 20 years, and now you've been working with top corporate leaders as well. And so, like, what do you believe will be the top three problems that they normally face?
I think it's COVID has made obviously certain challenges, but I think leaders generally have inadequate maybe leadership skills. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they do not have leadership skills, but I think they need probably to be a bit more structured in the way they um, manage their teams now. Yeah, because with virtual environment, there is a different level of skill set that is required, and it's not that easy. So one thing is probably to get the leadership skill a little bit more structured to ensure that
Mm-hmm.
you're able to manage a team from a basis. Yeah. Second is probably I would say maybe fixed mindset. I think we have to be a bit more open in the virtual mindset. At the same time, how we manage people from remotely would be a little bit different. So the mindset of say maybe on regular reporting might be a little bit more shifting towards maybe result oriented rather than saying managing the process itself. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe more of an outcome than an output process. Yeah. The third thing is probably about maybe the inability to garner the team's effectiveness. I think it's not that easy. Now we are working with multi generations now, right, in the workforce, and now with this remote working, which everybody's adopting a lot more and more, it's kind of hard to manage the different multi generations. Some are not so familiar with technology. Some prefers the face to face interactions, and I think to sort of mobilize the team to reach certain level of effectiveness is not so easy for leadership. So they probably need new sets of learning and skills in order to get the team ready for the new normal in many sense.
True. And through the answers that you've shared, I would say these are really very important aspects or problems, issues that you've raised and summarized here beautifully. And I would say, like, I remembered one interview also I did with Francis Kong, and he mentioned about, like, um, for some reasons a lot of organizations are still struggling with the leadership skills, right? And
Yeah.
that's why they need us. Obviously, right? Because they don't know how to handle it yet. And that's the beautiful part as well of with this problem as well, because there's always a solution that they can always take. And part of this is really to be a continuous learner, and leadership skills is innate in every one of us. But it's good to know that we can actually, like, improve on this, right? Like what you've shared, like, and the next point, which is fixed mindset, to turning it into a growth mindset. And part of that again is continuous learning, right? And yeah, and of course, it's not always easy to enhance the team's effectiveness. You have to know, like, how can you actually work together. So this is also like a journey that I'm taking on how we can actually ensure team effectiveness. How, like, what are the things or what are the tools that we can do to make it happen, right? Since this is, again, like you've said, it's one of the common leadership challenge. And it's interesting that, I've been discovering a few tools, interesting tools, that like numerology, on how you can actually um, understand, like, team synergy and like personalities in organizations, on top of the Gallup and other strength tests and disc things that you always get to hear. Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for summarizing these problems in such manner. I mean, like, definitely um spot on. And we don't leave them with all these problems. Maybe we can help them through answering the next question, which is, what actually are the important leadership skills or capabilities you must have to have in this next normal to continue to lead effectively. So let's try to solve their problem with this.
Well, it's always good to find solutions to problems, right? I think
Exactly.
generally, overall, probably in a sense that we are much more of a virtual context now.
Mhm.
I think it's important to understand remote skill. So anything that is um, uh, helping you to be much more effective working remotely, it's important. For example, how to use connecting tools virtually, especially using leveraging on technology, right?
Yeah.
We have to think and how to apply technology, or rather get comfortable with technology. So
Mhm.
connecting tools, how to do sharing information through technology, which is also very useful. I think generally remote skills are important, but remote skills is not just technology. I think it's important to think in terms of how we connect with people from a virtual context. So,
Mhm.
for example, like having much more of a FaceTime to communicate with your team, for example, sort of like replicate the water cooler sessions you had and when you're in the office, right? So this social interactions is generally quite important because we are generally social creatures. So we want to get understanding of each other in many ways, right? But it's not
Mhm.
just about formal communication; it's also about informal as well.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of organizations would find that if they have much more social events, even
Mhm.
online, to get
Mhm.
the connection and bonding, that would immensely help in terms of how they gel as a team, or rather, even from a leadership perspective of having that rapport with your team. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the next thing to link with technology as well as remote skill is probably about some level of self-discipline. Because at the end of the day, we're working remotely. So obviously, in a remote situation, maybe the environment is not as a conducive. For example, you get a lot of distraction from your family, or you don't have a sweet spots that you can utilize to do a lot of your work, and maybe your time is a little bit off with reference to maybe continuous working. So
Mhm.
ways to handle a self-discipline approach is important. For example, like setting boundaries in terms of
Mhm.
timeline, for example, of trying to organize or find a sweet spots within the space that you have at home to work, or maybe have time blocks or schedules that you could work with. I think this is important because you want to be more disciplined so that you accomplish
Mhm.
more, potentially with an environment that could be distracting in nature. I hope
True.
that answered those
Yes,
questions.
I actually love what you've said. It's not just about being comfortable or leveraging on technology to master that, virtual or remote working skills that you've mentioned, right? But it's also being able to stay connected with your
Yeah,
team. So I would say that it's more of like having that balance,
yeah,
discipline and balance at the same time, right? In the work processes and in in your journey in working remotely, right? So yeah, absolutely, it's really very helpful. And so that leads me, I mean, we've talked about the importance of leadership, as well as, the importance of continuous learning as part of this journey, right? So what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in thriving in the next normal?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I think generally the first point on learning, I think it's a continuous journey that we have. I mean, even prior to COVID, it's a continuous journey. I
True.
think it's so much important to acquire new knowledge because new things come about fairly quickly. It is
Mhm.
important that we have the right level of knowledge to thrive in a new normal and for the future. So learning is a never-ending journey, I would say. For leadership, I think it's about how leadership can impact change. So technically, upon leveraging on all the learnings and how we can apply and impact the change. So in terms of getting that transformation and result would be important. Now, in terms of
Mhm.
transformation, is probably about a progressive approach towards getting to a level of competency than it was before. So in other words, you more or less move the needle to be a lot better than you were before. And I see that transformation is about achieving something in your perspective of what it calls term as success. I think that's important in terms of transformation.
Mhm.
So learning, leadership, and transformation, that's how I view the three aspects of it.
Right, right. It's great that you've mentioned again about the continuous improvement, which requires, of course, continuous learning as well. And that, of course, the leadership will have like a high or important role in doing so, right? Because I mean, learning is one thing, but being able to apply it to really create that change that they're looking forward, or that transformation, for them to evolve. I hope I've actually gave justice to what you've answered by putting it in one sentence. um yeah. So
That's fine.
um,
It's fine.
yeah, so I mean, to evolve, like what you said, to evolve progressively. I mean, that's what we always been looking for. In fact, I have actually had attended like several masterminds with other leaders, and it's interesting that, whether the organization is small or big, they always, of course, would want to work on how they can actually evolve progressively, as what you've mentioned, or how can they have that consistency and sustainability that, that each and every organization, because at the end of the day, right, the reason why we wanted that consistency and sustainability is because we wanted to know that we are creating that impact, that transformation, not only for us but also for others, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Spot
Yeah.
on.
So so that leads me to my next question, which is my Miss Universe questions on if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it?
Yeah, we had a brief discussion on that. Generally, I'm going to keep it very simple. Generally, it's hopefully trying to remove COVID, as soon as possible. I mean, COVID has made a lot of challenges to a lot of people, or impacted, a lot of people. I think everybody would be really relieved if COVID were reduced or even removed completely, right? Well, we can go back to normal. But generally, the normal would probably be something of a combination between what we're doing now and what was before. I don't think it will move 100% to where it was before. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say, at least with COVID removed, in terms of using that magic wand, we'll breathe a little bit easier in many ways. And I think that's a first good step as a start for, in a short term view of how I can use the magic wand. Yeah.
Right, right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I've shared with you in an earlier conversation before we started about like what's actually the thought process that you've gone through to choose this. Because like what Hassan shared in our previous interview, he was saying that these are actually the last two are really difficult questions. And it's like it's very open. I mean, you can say anything. Like in your case, you've mentioned about removing COVID, so that everyone will be able to breathe a little more comfortably. Although as you've also mentioned in your your earlier answer that, but obviously you don't think that, the previous normal will still be, happening again, right?
Yeah.
So,
Not
so
evolved. Situation has evolved.
curious to know, like, what's the, thinking process that you've gone through to choose like this specific, um statement, or this wish, I would say.
Well, I was thinking much more of a shorter term rather than to a much of a long term. As you get longer in terms of what your wish list would be,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the solutions gets a lot vague, right? It's a lot more vague. So I decided to choose something that's a little bit more present, something that's occupying our minds, and if possible, if we remove that, how easy it would be for us in terms of getting a little bit, how should I say, breathing fresh air, having our usual social meetings again a lot more, and having not having the illness in our head all the time and worrying about the rising cases. So that was just a
Yeah.
thought process.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, that leads me to my last question, that if you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And please feel free to share with us like more information on why
Yeah.
this question, and like probably what's your answer to this question, right?
Well, I thought about it again. It's much more in line to COVID. So I would probably the best question would be, what is my immediate short-term plan? I will be able to answer that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the short-term plan is to obviously try to adapt and thrive within the environment that we are in now. Continue to pursue the goals that I set for the beginning of the year. So goal setting is important. So I set some sort of performance goals that I want to achieve, say if it's revenue or clientele or whatever I want to do. I hope that those would set the tone of my actions leading to end of the year. So I guess in terms of immediate plans, that would be something that I think about, and it's easy for me to answer because I set those goals myself in many ways. What are you?
Yes, yes. And again, it's so important to have that, uh plans and goals to be set, ahead of time as well, whether it's short term or long term plans, right? And because that will be our, like, guide, or like our, where we can actually like depend our action plans as well, on our journey, right? Yeah, so thank you for sharing with us. So before we end this interview, is there anything more that you'd like to, like a message that you'd like to share with, or to inspire our audience with?
Uh, well, I think there's opportunity. For me, I think the message is really about opportunity, even in the most challenging situation. So we just have
Mm-hmm.
to be a bit optimistic and
Mm-hmm.
stay safe. That's basically all I have to say.
Wow, thank you so much for making it very straightforward, and yet, I would say very spot on, conversation, that we had today. So I'm really grateful for your insights, and for making a lot of things sound so simple for us. So thank you so much. And of course, we thank you, those who are watching us, and do join us in this journey to fight the pandemic that caused us challenges, and let's all turn it into opportunity, like what Clement also said, right? Like we can always stay, turn this into something positive, or as an opportunity, through this kind of interventions we can help each other, right? So, do remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in yourself. So do always invest in yourself, having said that. And with that, we would like to leave you with a quote from Dolly Parton, that if your actions create legacy that inspires others to dream more, to do more, to learn more, and to become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Clement, and thank you, everyone. And
Thank you,
yeah,
Carolyn. Thank you, everyone.
yes, bye for now, and stay safe, everyone.
Likewise, stay safe.